What's up, guys? Sorry if I sound a little bad. I am pretty sick right now and getting over it. But it's been over a year since I posted a video on this car, and I am so sorry for that. I didn't go a full year without working on it. I'm just a little bit behind on posting my videos. So all the videos that I'm putting out right now are a little bit old. Just to recap, I turbocharged the D16Y7 in my 1998 Honda Civic Coupe with 251,000 miles on it. It didn't last very long until it started smoking and making some noise, and then the oil pump, I believe, went out, built up a bunch of pressure and shot off my oil filter, which caused a bunch of problems. So I ended up pulling out that motor, rebuilding it with Speed Factory rods, Viterra pistons, ARP head studs, BC valve springs and titanium retainers. All new everything. It's good for about 500 horsepower. And then I pulled apart the transmission and we put a M Factory LSD in the transmission, put everything together, put it back in the car, and I had barely any clutch, no reverse, and it was pretty hard to shift into fifth, but I did have first through fifth. I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, so I pulled the transmission out, and this video is what I found, and the damage is worse than you could imagine based on the symptoms. So without further ado, here is the redemption video that you all have been waiting for. What's up, guys? We are here for the first repair video at the new house. And we're working on the transmission from the Civic, from the EK Civic, because the Poop Civic's gone because I sold it. But anyway, I didn't show me taking this out because I've had it in and out of the car a million times, and that's super boring. So pulled out the transmission. I want to show you what I found. Also, say hi to Ryan.
Howdy.
But anyway, this is the clutch fork that came out of there. And as you can see, it's cracked right there, which is why I didn't have any clutch. Well, I had a little bit of clutch, but not much. And it's because the clutch fork cracked right there. So I already bought a new one of those. It's on the way. But we're going to go ahead and tear this thing apart and figure out why I don't have reverse. Okay, so what we found right here, I thought maybe reverse was upside down, but it looks to be installed the correct way. It's like halfway into fifth gear right now, and this won't move, and I can't shift on that fork at all. The other two forks work fine, so we're just gonna go ahead and pull the gear set out at this point and take a look at everything.
Yeehaw.
So we're making good progress, and then I must have lost my Allen sockets in the move. So we had to call it quits for now because all the stores still have COVID hours around here. Everything closes at like between 7 and 9 o'clock. So I'm gonna pick some up tomorrow on the way home from work, and we should be good to move on. What's up, guys? It's another day. Pouring rain outside, but we got the tools that we need to get the transmission apart the rest of the way. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull the gear set out and start figuring out what's wrong with it. Alright, so I found the problem. Here is the input shaft. This is where the fifth gear selector is, and it's completely stuck. So like this won't move up and down, and it's supposed to. I'm gonna try to pry it out. I probably broke something on here, so that's not good, but we'll see what we can do. It should be able to move freely. Like, here's one on another transmission. See if I can move it. Yeah, so see how I can move that by hand? That's how it's supposed to be. And the other one is completely stuck. So I'm gonna mess with it and see if I can get it unstuck. Okay, so I've figured it out. What had happened was on the top of this shaft here, The bearing had slipped up when I pulled the transmission apart, which is normal. Sometimes that happens. However, when that happened, this must have rotated because this only goes on one way. And it was on crooked. And when it was in the car and I was test driving it, I forced it into fifth gear, which these may be messed up. I'm not entirely sure yet. I haven't looked at them completely. However, if you look at the fifth gear synchro, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. This ring is messed up. Like you can see that right there. It's not round like it's supposed to be. It has grooves in it. So this has to be replaced. And then also the synchro, the edges right here completely sheared off. There's a piece that's stuck right there. You can kind of see it. So the fifth gear synchro is also bad. I do have another transmission. I'd be willing to bet that the fifth gear synchro from that transmission is just fine. I don't know how old that transmission is, or I could buy another set of synchros. I know for a fact the fifth gear setup like this stuff is probably perfectly fine from the other transmission, so I know I can use that. I might buy a new set of synchros. Okay, so I have it back together just to bring it over to my parents' house to work on it tomorrow. I'm hoping that I can get this thing in the car tomorrow, but I don't know. Maybe not. I ran this in with the gun like an idiot, and I thought that the selector was in place where it was supposed to be, and I had it on the lowest setting, but it didn't want to go in, and I kind of forced it. It wasn't clear as day that it didn't want to go in exactly right. I just didn't really think much of it, but I dented the selector on the inside, and it's kind of stuck. The shifter won't like to go left and right now. It does work, but I think I need to pull out the insides of the transmission and file that down now so that it still works properly. So I'm gonna have to do that tomorrow, but I did get all of the gears to work. So it does shift into fifth, even with the messed up synchro. It doesn't like it, but it goes into fifth, it goes into reverse, which was what didn't work in the first place. And all the other gears work too. So it's looking sort of good. Tomorrow I'm just gonna get it working as best as I can with the parts that I have. And then if it doesn't work, I'll probably just get another transmission. I was gonna say I'd build that, but I need the differential out of this one. If it doesn't work great, then I'll pull it back out and get a rebuild kit or get some good parts or something. Okay, so now I've reached into my bucket of transmission parts and I've pulled out this right here, which is the selector and the synchro from another D-series transmission. I don't know if they're the same gear ratio, so I don't know if the synchros are the same size, and I don't know if that selector is the same size, but this synchro is actually in really good shape. It was the fifth gear on this transmission, and fifth gear synchros don't usually get that beat up. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this thing back apart and then see if the sizes match. Okay, so here's the bottom half of the casing, almost completely taken apart. So here we have the gear shifter mechanism, which underneath you can see down there where I screwed it up by forcing that bolt in. It looks like the whole thing is pretty bent. So I'm hoping that I can kind of straighten it out, maybe file it down a little bit and get everything back working again. But I need to get this piece out. So it looks like I gotta start unbolting stuff, maybe these two bolts. There's a bolt right here, another one right there, another one right there. So I'm just going to start taking all of this apart until I can get this out and see if I can repair it, because I do not have another one of these. My spare transmission parts does not have that because I threw that part away. So hopefully I can fix this. If not, I need to either get one online or get another transmission, one of the two. I'm not opposed to getting a different transmission. I just need to put my differential in the other transmission. So we'll go ahead and start pulling this thing apart. So here's the part that I messed up. You can see where I forced the bolt in and it bent the whole thing. Let's see if we can get that to show. So now the whole thing's bent up, see that? So I'm gonna try to hammer it back down with like a punch and a hammer and straighten it out, and then I'm just gonna file this smooth again and it should be okay. I think that will save this part so that I don't have to get a new one. But one thing to know if you ever taken this apart, underneath here in this hole is a ball and spring, and you're going to want to put your finger over top that as you pull this out. Otherwise, it'll shoot up in the air, which is exactly what happened to me. But I did end up catching it. Plus, I found an extra one, probably from the last transmission I took apart right there. Or maybe that's just a ball bearing. I'm not sure, but we got the ball and spring right in there. And then there's another ball and spring that came out when I took this bolt out, but that one doesn't go flying. That one's right there. So we're gonna go ahead and straighten this thing out and then try to put it all back together. Okay, so here's what it looks like now. You can see it's still got a dent in it from the bolt, but it's flat. If I can get it to focus. Now you can see that it's flattened back out. It's not all raised up right there. I mean, it still kind of looks like it's bowed on this side a tiny bit, but on this side it's flat. And then right there you can see, rather than having a bump where I hit it right there, it's filed down. It might not be perfect. I'm really hoping this doesn't add a lot of play to my shifting. I know the trans will still work like this, so I'm not worried about that. But I'm gonna go ahead and put everything back together. I'm gonna oil it up. I do still have the transmission fluid that I pulled out of this transmission. I did buy more fluid too, just in case. But this was brand new fluid that I put in here when I rebuilt the motor and pulled the trans apart in the first place. So I'm gonna go ahead and lube up these parts as I'm installing them and put everything back how it was, except for the counter shafts. Alright, so now everything's back together. You can see that it spins in place. We have this thing ready. So a trick for getting the gear set back in is that this selector, normally that's how it sits. If you pull it this way, when you got all the screws out of it, if you pull it to the left and then lift it up, it'll stick, right? So when it sticks there, it's actually centered pretty much exactly where the gear set needs to go. So what you do is you put the gear set in and you start feeding this in right here, and then typically I stick a drill bit right there, and that holds this from sliding back that way. When you move it like that, it'll keep it from sliding all the way to the left again, and that'll keep these centered. And then you just kind of play with these and this while you're setting the gear set in, and you hold the gear set by the gears themselves. Do not hold it by the forks, because otherwise it'll start shifting while you're setting it in. And you gotta just kind of play with it like that, and you should be able to get it back in no problem. I'll show you when I get to that point. I'm not at that point yet. So right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at this fifth gear selector right here with this synchro and this selector right here. I'm not taking fifth gear off itself because I think fifth gear is different on that transmission. We're just using these parts, and we're gonna see if they fit on that gear set. So I'm gonna go ahead and take apart that main shaft there and compare the parts right here and see if they work. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you as best I can how this goes together. We're going to zoom in right here so you can see the little selector right here, because this is the key. first. Second. We got everything back together here now. Even got the reverse gear back in. I've gone through each gear to make sure it shifts into the gears. So we're going to go ahead and put this thing together. But I do need to clean up the outside, get all of this old RTV off so we can put new stuff on. My battery's almost dead here on the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and charge it while I'm doing that. So I'm just going to Scotch-Brite around there and on the case over there and get this cleaned up and ready to go, and then we'll start recording again. Alright, I got a new pivot ball and a new clutch fork and a new spring for the clutch fork, so I'm going to go ahead and install all of those right now. Alright, here we go. We're going to put the transmission back in the car.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
What?
It's in already?
Is it?
I think it's in. My side's in, the dial's in and everything.
Yeah, my side's in. I don't know if that's I don't know if that was just luck or if the dowels make that big a difference. I'm sure the dowels help, but like, I think that might have been luck.
That's crazy. That went right in. Like butter.
Jeez.
Okay, let's put some bolts in it.
Okay, picking back up where we left off on the Civic. Since the last video, we've actually put on the new slave cylinder and bled it, so that's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and button everything else up here, put the starter in, hook up the speedometer sensor, put the ground back on, and hook up the catch can, and then we'll go underneath the car and work from there. But I forgot my tripod, so I'm just going to keep you guys updated without time lapses. Okay, we got all the stuff on top hooked up. As you can see, oil catch can is hooked up, the starter's in, the speedometer's plugged in, and the reverse light is hooked up. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the underneath of the car. Alright, so under here now, all we got to do is put in the axles right there. The shift linkage is already hooked up. I did that to make sure it goes into gear, which it does go into each gear. Put in that axle right there, put in this under piece right here, and then the torque mounts right there. And then I want to replace this one, because they're both pretty torn up and I got new ones. So put new torque mounts in, and then I believe we're ready to put the turbo kit on. Okay, time for a small update. So down here we have both axles in, this side and the other side, and then we have this little inspection plate cover thing, bracket, bolted up, and then we have brand new torque mounts. So brand new torque mount right there, and a brand new torque mount on that side. From what I understand, if you have solid mounts, mine are solid poly mounts, you don't need torque mounts, but just for the sake of completion, I just wanted to have new ones in there, especially because the ones that were in there were completely shot. So like you can see, this thing's all ripped and nasty. This one's kind of okay, I guess. It's pretty dry rotted, as you can see. I did replace these at some point during my ownership of this car, but it's been maybe 6 years since then, and I've beat on it a whole lot. So those are definitely ready to be swapped out. All we have left to do is install the turbo, the whole turbo kit, the intercooler piping and the turbo with the manifolds and the oil lines, and fill the transmission with fluid. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill the transmission with fluid now before I forget, and then we'll go ahead and bolt the turbo kit stuff on. So really good news, I have the car finished, everything's all together, and I took it for a test drive, and it works, which is so cool. The only two issues that I have is that the wideband's not working anymore, so I'm going to calibrate it and see if that fixes it. And the clutch grab's really, really low to the floor. I'm not sure if that's just the kind of clutch it is. It's a Stage 5 XTD eBay clutch. And maybe that's just how it is. So if that's how it is for you, please comment that below so I know not to freak out a little bit. But I'm going to try to bleed the new slave cylinder a little bit more, see if I can get some better clutch. Other than that, clutch grab's fine. All of the gears work. The motor works. No weird noises. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get that wideband sorted out so I can tune the car and throw the bumper back on. What's up, guys? I'm driving home from work right now in the Civic. I've been driving this car for a few days. I got just about 600 miles on the engine. So far, everything's so good. I changed the battery because this car has been pretty much dead for 2 years. So I put a new battery in it because I was having problems getting it started. Then the alternator bracket backed off, and I lost one of the bolts. I ended up having to put that back on, get a replacement bolt. Drove it for a baby for 500 miles, changed the oil. It had a good amount of metal in it, but that's expected. I was running break-in oil, so break-in procedure should be going good. The car sounds great. It is a little bit noisier than before I built the engine from piston slap, but it's really not that bad. I hit boost a couple times. I am only running wastegate right now, and I haven't opened the wastegate yet. So, and that's like 7 pounds. So I've only hit a few pounds of boost. I did also have to replace the wideband O2 sensor. Went bad from running the previous motor with all the oil in it. So I'm running the tune from before I built the motor, and the AFRs are a little bit rich in places, but for the most part they're good. So it's a good base map for me to break this motor in the rest of the way. I'm just gonna go ahead and show you guys the mileage. So you can see cruising, we're at like 13 to 14 in that range there on the AFRs. And then if you look all the way up here, we got 600, I don't know how many miles that we're gonna have to speed up so we can see what it's at. So 601 miles, and that's what I have after I reset it when I put the motor in. So we have 252,380 miles on the car, but 601 miles on the motor. So that's where we're at right now. Fingers crossed everything stays good. That's the end of this video. I know it's been a long time, guys. Since this car was posted, there will be another video soon on this car. I can promise you, because I've already recorded it and I'm in the process of editing it. You might see some other videos first, but they'll be good as well. No more boring videos on this channel. Only cool cars from this point on. If you've made it this far into the video, please like it. Feel free to share the video. Anything you can do will help. My videos seem to do pretty bad at first for the first couple of months, and then they pick up and get a few thousand views or so. Some of them take off, but they take a long time to get to that point, and I think it would really help me out with sponsors and things like that if my videos picked up a little bit faster. So if you want to support my channel, the best thing that you could do is hit that like button and share my videos. Also, if you haven't, please subscribe and click the bell to get notifications of when I post. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.